Tonight, we're talking about aggressive, impulsive, and out of control to healthy, happy, and whole. We're talking about child behavior. And if you're in this group, you've joined us because you're searching for answers for your children. Now, some of you have been watching us for a long time on TikTok or YouTube, and some of you are just getting to find us now. And many of you are coming to us after having gone to therapy for years or with children who have been diagnosed with one, two, or three different types of child behavior disorders. Some of you have gone to the medication route. I also did the medication route before finding Creating Champions for Life. So we're going to share a story with you tonight to inspire you, to breathe life into you and your children, your relationship, to bring you hope that there is a better way, to let you know that if you're willing to fight the good fight, the answers are right here. And before I introduce Nicole, I just want to say that I found the solutions myself in 2011, the beginning of 2011. I had been on the road of child behavior disorders at that time for already 6 years, listening to the psychologists, the teachers, the pediatricians telling me that my kids were missing neural pathways. And I didn't really know what that meant. I just thought God made my kids sick. And I really didn't know what to make of that, because unless you have a medical degree or you're willing to read a bunch of textbooks, you might be lost in the dark, and you might be kind of open to just believing those around you who we have been taught through our lifetime to trust. And I also want to pre-frame that I believe that everybody does the best they can with what they know. I think that the whole world has great intentions, that we're all on the same side. We want what's best for the children. We want what's best for the families. But as JFK said back in the 60s, children are only as good as what they've been taught. And aren't we just big children learning how to navigate this world as a parent? Like, nobody ever says, "Oh, you're a parent, now you got it all figured out," do they? So, with that being said, I promise to introduce you to Nicole to share an inspirational story with you. And I'm going to let Nicole introduce herself. So, do you want to share who you are and how many kids you have, and basically what was your story before Creating Champions for Life, Nicole?
Yeah, we are husband and wife. My husband's name is Tim. We have an 11-year-old son, Rowan, and a almost 6-year-old. And I became a mom at 31. If you're keeping up with the Joneses, I guess. um, and I had no concept of what it was like to even be around kids. It was just like most of my like adult semi teenage, growing into adult, I didn't even want to be near kids. Like I thought, okay, maybe one day I'll be a mom, whatever. And then got married and it was like, yes, I definitely want to be a mom. It's just I didn't really know why. It was just maybe like a biological clock is ticking, I just am happy, and that's just the next step. um, and I had lots of anxieties. I wanted to do everything right. And, Tim's anxieties were more long term. Like oh, what do they do? They grow up and things like that. Mine were short, like pregnancy and labor. And I didn't really think that much more further than that. I was just like, we'll just kind of wing it. And, we've got family around us. And we had Rowan, and he just challenges everything that you can possibly think of. And thank goodness he does. Um, it was there were some inklings in the very beginning. I didn't know really what it meant. I would ask questions to the doctor, and they would say, "Well, he's hitting his milestones, and we'll just see how he grows and things like that." And I think around 2.5, 3 years old, when I started really going into play dates and being social with him and him being around other kids, I thought something's different here. Like, yeah, kids have tantrums and stuff, but he just wouldn't focus on other people. He would focus on things, and he had a lot of stimming behaviors, as they call it. Like he would flap his hands, or he would. But then he would have really good communication and eye contact. So, because everybody was like, well, if he was autistic, he wouldn't have eye contact. get all these opinions. And then as we got older and more interactions with kids and moms and stuff, I had several people come up to me and say, hey, just want to point something out, like something might be not be right with your kid. And I was like, oh, what should I do? Oh, well, you should go to this therapy. And then I would ask my family, and they're like, ah, he'll just grow out of it. And I would ask the pediatrician, and they're like, just, if he's doing something you don't like, just firmly say no, or, pull him out of the room, or, like do something. I would try all the things, and it just didn't, we weren't connecting as parent and
Hey,
child.
Nicole, no, share about he'd run across the room, he would grab you, he was aggressive, he was conduct disorder. That was what they were talking about at the age of 6. So before you do, if you're watching this, didn't you have a parenting dream like Nicole did before you became a mom? Because I personally went, oh, when I have kids, I'm just going to love them so much. I'm going to be so different than my parents were, that they're gonna skip the terrible twos. And that certainly didn't happen for me. So if you're watching this, what was your parenting dream, and where are you watching from, and how many kids do you have now? We want to hear from you. And as Nicole shares her story, if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you as well. So yeah, what was Rowan doing that actually caused you to have to think you had to go to therapy?
Yeah, so around 3.5 years old, it was almost overnight. He went from being like this lovable, smiley, who would wake up happy, and all of a sudden he was just not. He was moody and cranky and would cry, and I couldn't understand what he needed. And I would I would watch things like, oh, do with your kid, and like show him how to do blocks and things like that, and he just wouldn't even pay attention to me. And he would, any like abrupt noise, so like if we were at a birthday party and they started singing happy birthday, he would just run to me and start hitting me. And I was just terrified. I didn't know what to do. Is this kid mad? Is he angry? Is something wrong with him? I wasn't able to bring him out certain places, or we would go to the library and he would just run off and like grab things. And he was never interactive with kids as far as like grabbing and pushing. He would actually just stare at them. And if we were in like a musical class, and I would have to like be on guard everywhere we went, because I never knew when he was just going to run and start hitting me or hitting his dad. And so we took him to a therapy center, and actually I went through a lot of our stuff. I found some documents way back from 2016, so he must have been 1.5 years old. And we started getting these assessments. And so this wasn't a doctor's diagnosis, but these were the actual therapists, the occupational, speech, and physical therapy. They said we needed all three. They needed to work together. I had to leave him there with them for 1 to 2 hours at a time. They started saying all these terms. He has difficulties with motor planning skills. He has delays in self-help skills, delays in fine motor skills, deficits in speech and language skills, difficulties with self-regulation, sensory integration issues. And it was just, I was entered into a world that was completely. So I, like Melissa in the other interview, I'm a researcher. And so that's all I did every single day. I would learn. What do these things mean? What can I do at home? And nothing was working. I would sit in the waiting room, and they would come out and they're like, well, we did this and this with him, and see you tomorrow. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's so frustrating. So
yeah.
what parenting style were you actually following? I mean, were you a hard ass parent? Like, did you ever yell at him? What kind of parenting were you following back then?
I mean, I never thought I would hit my kid. It was never, I was always like, I will never spank my kid. I'm not going to be that type of parent. I didn't get hit as a kid. My mom wasn't a yeller. Um, you know, I never even imagined my house being in disarray or anything like that. I thought it was going to be, peaceful and open, and, like just heart centered. And so I'm looking for things. And so positive parenting, I gravitated towards. I would watch the nanny shows and TLC things, and I would implement little things here and there. We actually were very against bribing. We always had a sense of, like, we don't want to overcompensate our kids, because I had, that as I was a kid. I didn't want to manipulate them, even though we probably were. We didn't even know it. But I didn't want to outright bribe my kids, so I would attempt to find other ways to do it. And it was very gentle, like get on their level and ask nice and observe them and be in their world. And but it was nothing tangible. It was nothing concrete that would like consistently help me connect with him.
What about, like, did you not have boundaries? I mean, because aren't we taught to have boundaries and rules and to catch our kids doing something, inappropriate, and then come in and correct that inappropriate behavior? Were you doing all of that? And so something just must have been wrong with Rowan.
Yeah, I mean, so the boundaries were like, I would, when he would fly at me in a rage, I would turn around and hug him, because they said give him a sensory diet. So the boundary was he's not allowed to interact with you. If I was not able to shut myself in a room, which was one of their advices, I had to shut myself in a room and close the door until he was done kicking and screaming. Otherwise, I'd put him in a bear hug facing out until he was calm. And so it was a lot of, safe hands, and like, we don't do that with our hands, we do this with our hands. But it didn't allow him to express or communicate. I've just have year after year, and it's the same advice, it's the same diagnosis over again, and nothing ever changed.
Wow. Okay. So what kind of behavioral, you were taking him to different types of therapy? Weren't you spending over $1,000 a month on therapy? And hey, if you're watching this and you're listening to Nicole's story, you're like, I do that. I do the gentle parenting. I have boundaries set up. I'm doing everything that they're telling me to do. And my kid is out of control. If your child is aggressive, if they scream for hours at a time, and you've tried everything under the sun and you're so frustrated, we want to hear from you, because we're going to be heading into the magic of the solutions that I couldn't find anywhere on the planet. And Nicole, like, you seem like a pretty studious person to me. Like you said, you were a researcher, you were trying your best to be this kind parent. So, what kind of therapies were you taking him to? And what was your experience?
So from like 3 to 6 or 7, we were in this particular place. They also had cranial sacral therapy. We did acupuncture, herbal therapy. I'm a massage therapist. I mean, it's all great stuff, and everybody means well, and certainly helps with some things. But it was never getting to the core issue, which was me, and our ways of parenting. And we ended up kind of sticking with the therapy center. So it was also physical therapy in the pool, physical therapy in their gym, 2 hours of speech therapy, which was also feeding therapy, and occupational therapy, and they all integrated together because they were kind of in the same room or building. I took him to a special tutor for reading that catered towards cognitive delays and autism. I drove over an hour to an hour back to bring him there. I had a special room set up with sensory toys, special clothes that were like pressurized clothes or sensory toys and tools. We had family helping us pay for all these therapies when insurance wouldn't, and they were encouraging me to get the autism diagnosis, which we were never keen on doing. We really didn't want any labels. We just felt like it can't be this hard all the time. It's got to be better. There's got to be a better way. And they just kept saying, you should get that diagnosis. It would really help them pay for all of this. And I was like, where's an end to it?
Right, where is the end to it? And that's the truth. They're it's like, yeah, anyways, we all know if you're here, you've probably been on the same path Nicole's actually talking about. So you were just heading into behavioral therapy, and they were talking about conduct order when COVID hit. So do you want to talk about your transition?
Yeah, so this right here is a document from 2019. It was December, so slightly before COVID started to come into play, because the behavior got so bad. So some things that this reminded me of, he was starting to use weapons to threaten me because he was in such a rage. And And it seemed like he was being cruel to our cat. It was something that was really freaking me out.
Mm.
We had an assessment. It's called Connors 3 Index, and it's a parental assessment. So it was a questionnaire for me and Tim separately, and then they would rate the score and have like a possible consideration for what the diagnoses might be, and then you'd move on to further assessments. So this was the first thing that we did, and he had a couple of therapy sessions. Um, and it said possible consideration for autism, developmental delay communication, developmental delay emotional, developmental delay social, emotional disturbance, other health impairment, specific learning disability, and there's a sheet in the back that talks about conduct. And it was specifically geared towards that we reported that there was weapons and animal cruelty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that can be actually quite terrifying, right? Because people see their kids being mean to animals and it's like, holy cow, they're gonna grow up and be a serial killer or something. Like that's
I've,
actually like
I've had
terrifying.
visions of, wanting to lock my door at night.
Oh my God, Nicole. I remember like one of your very first coaching sessions with Tom too, and Rowan was like not liking Tom at all. He was like, "Who is this man? He's gonna come in and wreck my game." So, talk about what did you find that started to gear you in there might be something to this whole creating champions for life thing?
Well, I was in the chat rooms, there are the support groups night after night after night. At this point, I had my daughter, so I must have been nursing. And up at night just scrolling, trying to figure out, because every morning was was happen. And if we were going to get into heated things and how I was going to have to keep my baby safe. And so someone somewhere in some message, post or comment, I think had a link to, was your website, possibly a YouTube video or the book, because it was one of those three things, because I ended up circling around the drain for a while. I would read some of the Learn to Speak Kid book and implement things, and I'm like, wow, this actually kind of did something. I saw a response from him, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something positive. And so I would keep looking, and I would look at the YouTube videos. It was the ones with the family at the dinner table, and like these concepts, I never even considered showing him. It was a lot of advice. Oh, he'll get to it when he's older, or figure it out. He'll start doing things when he's older. Things like that. A lot from our family would say that. I never thought to just kind of hold the line and show him skills like this. I would just be afraid of his reaction, and I would give in. And this gave me hope. I'm like, wow, if this feels like it's the right thing to do as a parent.
Right? Because wasn't Tim wasn't Tim told or you guys told that Rowan would never be able, like he wasn't capable of ever sitting still. There was he you would never expect the same from him as you would from other kids. Weren't you told that about Rowan?
Not without any therapy. It had to be with therapy. There was going to be no progress, and he would revert back to the old ways if we ever stopped.
Wow. Okay. So then afraid of his reaction and give into it. I can so relate to that. Yeah, so we're getting a lot of comments. And Chelsea, I'm so glad you're here. So Chelsea, we're gonna have to do an interview with you as well because she was a gentle parent. Her kids were being ODD. And when she say, I feel empowered, there's peace and happiness in my house. My kids are thriving now because of creating champions for life. Yeah. So if you're watching this, like we're not just here to I don't know, like just share our story for the sake of it. We're here to inspire you. We're here to bring you hope. We're here to let you know that we can relate with what you're going through. We're here to let you know that our kids were just as far off the edge as any child out there. We've had every horror story under the sun come to creating champions for life because we're teaching you in this group and on this YouTube channel are principles. And these are time tested principles that people use to create success in business, they're the same time tested principles that are in scripture. In every single personal development book, you can find these. And so when we're looking at what Nicole's talking about, when we're looking at things from a therapy or a doctor perspective, they're coming in really linear. And I'm not here to like hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. It's just that doctors focus on the symptoms, and personal development and principles focus on um, life skills, focus on helping, like Nicole said, getting to the root of the issue, getting to the root of the issue and breathing life into it and teaching life skills so that we can help the kids from the inside out and give them skills that will serve them not just in your home, but at school and in life. And so as you're watching this, if you can imagine, would you love to have more cooperation, more peace in your home? Children who are more independent, take initiative. Would you like to enjoy your children more? Do you ever feel guilty, like you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, but you must be doing it wrong? So then you have like this guilt and like you're failing your kid. I hear this all the time in almost every interview. And I want to tell you that's not the case. I really believe that you're doing everything that you've been taught to do in these books, and you're probably doing it the way that they're telling you to do it. It's not you, it is the information that you're learning has been incorrect. If what you want is a healthy, happy, cooperative kid, right? Like it depends what your goal is, right? Do we want our children just to comply, right? Just sit there and be quiet? Because if so, we could just go back to what they did in the early 1920s where they used to beat the crap out of kids. Because you'll hear stories all the time from your grandma. It's like, oh, my kids never, I'd never talked to my parent like that. No, because they used to take you behind the barn and beat you with a switch. That changed in the middle of the 1940s, right? It was like, no, we can't beat our children anymore. We need to come in and do these timeouts and takeaways and be kind and gentle. And I'm all for being kind and gentle. Like, shouldn't we be kind and gentle with our children? They're just children. So I want to talk about the transition, the miracle of creating champions for life, and how it helped your family and how it can help other families around the world when they can just see that there's nothing literally wrong with the children. Can you talk about that? Because I mean, Rowan was pretty far off the charts. If there was anything wrong with any child, it would have been him, or it would have been my son Zach too. And share your experience there, please.
From the very beginning, it was very clear that the focus would be on us, or the source of, not that we created autism. There are symptoms there. It's, our kids are different, and they should be. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter.
Right.
Geniuses. It's better be in a positive light. But the way we approach them is where it starts, and it was very obvious that's where we were going, and it was very, we're ingrained in these patterns, things we didn't even know we were doing. So it was that transition in the beginning, and still sometimes is what we were trained to do, and how to react instead of. I would say that was the very beginning, and expect that. And if you're willing to do this, be open to it. Let those things shed off, because that's what's getting in the way.
Yeah. So, Cher, what do you see with Rowan now? I mean, you've been working the program with us for a couple of years. Who is Rowan now?
4 years.
4 years. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Rowan is a leader. I'm gonna cry. Just so amazing. Great big brother. Buddy. Leading his own social group in our co-op. He's inventive and creative, and he's sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's come to life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, You all have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all have come to life, and it's you're cutting out a little bit on the audio, so hopefully if you're watching
Mhm.
this, like,
Right.
just just put 2 and 2 together. She's watching her little genius come to life, and, after being told that there was literally no hope without years and years worth of therapy, different types of therapy, that he was just different. Tim, did a story with me a couple years ago, and he was like, "I was told that he could never sit still, and now he does 5-minute self-control training all the time." And, I've seen him read stories to his little sister. I've seen him in every single video that you're with. He's smiling, he's calm. Just yeah, what are you seeing there?
Man, he, whatever skill was missing, he would be terrified to say hello to people as they passed us in, the grocery store, and he would get so angry. He just didn't know what to do, and we were at a grocery store, and he was pacing around as he does, and a woman came up to me and she said, "Is that your son?" I said, "Yes. Is everything okay?" And she said, "I said hello to him and he said, 'No, go away.'" And I was like, "Oh, did he now?" And he came over to me and he was terrified. He just didn't know what was going on. And so a few months into Champions for Life, and he's saying hello to everybody, just everybody all the time. Hello, getting everybody's attention. I'm Rowan. I just got a haircut, and now he's like the biggest ham.
Aw. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. So talk a little bit about so the parents can actually grab something tangible tonight. So if you're seeing, like, if this is hitting you in the soul, like, oh my gosh, like, this sounds like I could do it. And that's the biggest thing. We want you to know, when you come to this group, it's like, will this work for me? Will this finally work for me? I've been praying for an answer. I've been taken through the ringer, and I want to know, will this work for me? First of all, what would you say to that before we talk about something in particular? And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to speak from the heart. But do you think this will work for any parent that's watching this for their kid?
Yeah, I'm just anybody. I'm not someone special. Like, I don't have some special quality or skill that this just works just for me. It just it is the last, if you allow it, it is the last place you will ever need to go.
Yeah, and there's no therapy. You don't have to drive for an hour. You get on a Zoom, you work with us. Everything's all, we
No.
know the pathway. We have the yellow brick road to take you to your parenting dreams, to help you enjoy being with your children. Like, you can see the joy in Nicole. She loves spending time with her children. She homeschools her children. So talk to the moms and dads watching this. The difference between proactive, what you're learning with Creating Champions for Life is proactive, versus the reactive, what you learn in every single other parenting philosophy.
Yeah, there's a formula, and it works. You'll know what to do no matter what, and you know that as an empowered parent, you know that you're going to go into a situation, whether it's going to
Oh, she's
social environment, and you can start playing with them and imagining, what am I going to encounter? So this is all the fear and anxiety kids build up inside themselves and cannot articulate. I'm going into a library class and I have no idea what to do, and there's noises and there's people and everybody wants me to do something. And now we have this amazing routine, like whether it's the dentist or, going for whatever, and we play at home. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to feel. This is how you can respond, and we show them by playing these games together. And it's just a part of our daily life. It's our routine now. My daughter had two dental fillings, and she didn't even want me in the room. I
Yeah,
got
tell them how old your daughter is.
She's gonna be 6, and she was like 4 when this. My son ended up having an MRI. We went that route to make sure everything was clear. He's fine, and but I had this under my belt for a while, and we practiced having an MRI at home, and they couldn't stop saying how he was the best patient they ever had. They took him right to the room to pick out a toy when we were done. He was completely calm and at peace, and he knew that I was there with him every step of the way. It's just a great relationship.
Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Like, going from what they were going to be calling autism and conduct disorder and years of therapy, and I'm sure they were going to go down the medication route, because when you're hitting and you're aggressive and screaming all the time, that's the answer. And now you are proactively parenting, you're focusing on teaching life skills, you practice this is what an MRI is going to be like, and he was the best patient they ever had.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, and so okay, we're gonna finish up with this story. You sent Tom a video where you were teaching the kids about playing video games, and you were teaching them bare minimum, average, and outstanding, and exactly what it looks like. And it's so cute because you've got the mom and dad. I'm just gonna share. So you've got the mom and dad sharing. This is what playing a little bit of video games gonna look like, and you've got the two adults going, "Stop it!" And it's freaking hilarious. I should put those videos together and we should put them on YouTube because they're awesome. But do you want to just share about that, like about the role play that you guys do and the fun that you have in your family? Because I think it's really great.
Yeah, Rowan's very silly, but he's also very he was in the beginning of role play, he's like, I don't want to act that out. That's like, because we do the good, bad, and the ugly. So like if you're using this like terrible behavior, this is what's gonna happen. And they get to see us do it. And so, like, me and Tim were like, no, give me that. And I want to, like, just going all red all over. And the kids are like laughing and they're like, look at mom and dad do what they're doing. But at the same time, because it's playful, and then they get to do it's almost like charades. Kalina's like, I want to do the good. I want to do the next one. And I want to blow the whistle if I want to be the referee, whatever. And it's like charades, and it builds these immediate connections, those neural pathways. And so when they're in the situation, it just is like, hey, remember that? I get to choose. Oh, yeah. It's just instant.
I'm coming back. Sorry. No, I'm here. I didn't leave you. No, that's awesome. I leaned over to grab this book because Angela gave me this book because we took a business mentoring course. It's called The $1,000,000 Day. So if you want to know what the $1,000,000 day is for yourself, it's like clear out or schedule yourself in an entire day to take care of the stuff you've been promising yourself you're going to take care of for a month, 2 months, 3 months, or whatever. But I'm reading this story and he's talking about neuroplasticity and the $1,000,000 day. And so when you take your kids to the doctors and they're like, hey, your kid's missing neural pathways or whatever, they're imbalanced, this or that, there's things missing. I do believe that to be true. And I don't know if you know about this, but if you were to go and get your like aura kind of tested, and your brain map tested, and you were like, say, having a fight with your spouse or something, and you were in a really bad mood and you've been crying all morning, post a comment. What do you think? Do you think that the brain map is going to show different colors and different receptors going off? Um, Different than if you had just spent a day at the pool with a good book and a good friend and you giggled all morning and then went for some sort of brain scan test? Put in the comments, do you think that the results would show up differently? And we're going to come back to this after you put in a few comments, because I'm going to share this story with you, because he's talking about they moved to some place in the desert in Phoenix. And the master plan was to build 1,200 homes in this little area, but theirs was the first home. So when they got there, there was no traffic. It was just like you could go up to the corner, turn left, you were the only car there, right? So no problem. There was like a one lane road. Then after, like, the summer came, they left for the summer. And what happened is when they came back, they had built a bunch of homes. And then all of a sudden there was like traffic jams. So at one point in time, he was talking about having to wait 2 blocks worth of traffic to be able to turn left. Well, what happened was the city came in and they built something called an Autobahn, right? They built like a super highway and they added more lanes and they added overpasses and bridges and that kind of thing. And so all of a sudden, you didn't have to wait behind 2 blocks of cars anymore. You could just pull up to the road and turn left, no problem. And then he calls this, our brain works the same way. If your brain kind of gets stopped somewhere, we learned what we've learned, and then you have this like traffic jam kind of thing. If you continue on growing and learning, and somebody believes in you and breathes life into you and role plays with you and teaches you life skills, almost like from going like 14, you want to drive a car but you don't know how to drive a car, and then you get your learners, and then you practice, and you start building new new neural pathways. It's been a long day. All right. That's what the brain does. So I'm saying this for sure. I've got a for sure, absolutely, yes, definitely. Angela says, I would think so. Thoughts become things. Our brain has a gazillion neural pathways. Yes. Chelsea says yes. Um, so yes, we know intuitively in our hearts that the brain can grow new neural pathways. So when you take your child who's been completely controlled through gentle control, we call it gentle parenting, through rules and consequences and boundaries without any teaching of life skills. I mean, if you're watching this, if you've never heard of this before, how often did you role play going to a restaurant before you took your child to a restaurant? This is how we sit at a table. This is how we hold a fork, you know? How much did you role play going to a changing room if you took your kid to the mall or to the grocery store? Don't we just take our kids to the grocery store and then nitpick them the whole time? Come over here. Hang on. Stop running around. Stop that. No, don't touch. Don't touch. And we're doing it in a gentle, kind way. But the problem is that these kids, I really believe that these kids are acting out and getting out of control because the pain needs to become real in order to create change. And they're just asking for change in the only way that they know how. And what I'm breathing life into you, mom or dad, whoever's watching, is I want you to look at your child right now, or when you get off of this, or tomorrow morning. And I want you to really look at them. And I want you to say this: I believe in you, and I believe you can learn. And I'm going to stop believing all of these lies about you. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Do you need to learn some life skills? You probably need to learn some life skills, and that's on me, your mother. Your children are counting on you to do this. They're counting on you to show them how the world works. They're counting on you to stand up and rise and be infantry and to fight for their life. Because the system just does the best they can with what they know, but they don't know creating champions for life. And they don't know the ultimate cause for oppositional defiant disorder. But we do. The laws do. And anybody who's ever studied success or universal principles will know that what we're speaking here is the truth, and that there is a way to help your child grow new neural pathways as a human being. So, with all that being said, Nicole, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the moms watching tonight before we wrap up?
I would say, not your fault. Know what you know when you go into it. Seeing things now, if you're making the connections that maybe there's a better way, a different way, um, just forgive yourself. And if you stick to it and you get into these principles and this program, just tell your kids, I'm sorry. You know, I'm here. I believe in you now, and I'm gonna stick to it no matter how hard it gets because I believe in you, like you said. Not your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a way. And if you're hopeful, if you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, this brings me so much hope, you're never going to be able to implement what we teach you in a 20 or 30-minute video by yourself. You're going to need some help because we have a lifetime of conditioning. Not only have you been a parent for 5, 6, 10, 15, 17 years and been parenting in one direction, your parents parented you, and they only did the best they could with what they knew as well. So, I mean, if you're looking for help, either reach out with a DM or post me, please, underneath this video, whether you're on YouTube or you're in our group or wherever you're watching this video, and we will reach out to you as soon as we possibly can. So, with that being said, Nicole, until we meet again, here's to our parenting success. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.